You know, you can boil that down to a nice 6662. Isn't it amazing how mainstream media works just to let their friends know who's on their side? And there was some real terrorism, but that didn't get in the news. Just, you know, if you don't go fishing for it, you're never going to come back with it. But a bomb blew up outside the Newberry Courthouse in Northern Ireland. Like real terrorists let off a 250-kilogram bomb, and we're looking for like imaginary crap all over the rest of the world. Some guy put some exploding gotchis together on an airplane, the whole world changes. But when you have a real terrorist blowing up 250 kilograms, that's probably like, you know, 750 pair of underwear all at once, knocking out the downtown core. That doesn't count. Because it's not propaganda terrorism to change for the New World Order. That's probably the New World Order's boys just doing what they've been doing for a long time. And the media does what they've been doing for a long time, ignoring them. So we see our buddy here crashed an airplane into the IRS building here. That's quite the thing. And then Mr. Stack here is the pilot. They pick up very quickly on the fact the fire truck or the police were on alert. They were ready for Joe Stack for some strange reason. But it appears as a computer programmer, and he crashed his plane into what they call the Echelon building. Echelon's one of those like major spying filters they use to watch you. Isn't that cool? But his contractors that he worked for had connections to 9/11, the National Security Agency, and the Department of Homeland Security for some strange reason. Interstate Electronics Corporation, IEC, designs GPS flight management systems. Those would probably come in real handy to crash planes in a building. They're a wholly owned subsidiary of L3, a defense contractor with Homeland Security and National Security Agency connections. L3 is a consultant to the National Security Agency who watched a live feed of the first plane, 9/11 plane that is, crashing into the World Trade Center. Hey, you gotta be really good to have the camera set up to catch that baby flying in there when everybody was surprised. No one would have suspected anyone would have done anything like that. And that company also came up in the SEC investigation into those put options. You know, that you made a few bucks off that too, eh? That's planning. Then there was that whack in Dubai there where they killed some terrorist, and they're blaming it on the Mossad, and somehow all these guys get passports from Britain and some other countries as well for some of the other people who were wanted in this thing. It's like I said for years from the very beginning, it doesn't matter what they do because it's the intelligence agencies that do this stuff. And they got the machines to make the originals anyway. So you change the color and you put another picture on it, and you can, like, duplicating documents is one of the most important things an intelligence agency does. It's always been that way. So they can get around any security they want, especially when their corporations control some of the security at various institutions. That was one of the big flags raised about the false flag, with Virant controlling a lot of things. But the Iranians seem to have done a good job. They nailed some real terrorists. They call them Jundallah terrorists, led by Abdul Malak Rigi. And this guy was nabbed on a flight from the United Arab Emirates to Kyrgyzstan. It's amazing how these guys get to fly, you know, and then they're looking up some grandma's underwear. But the Iranian security forces said this guy was on a U.S. base in Afghanistan 24 hours before his capture, had a forged Afghan passport. I guess the Americans gave it to him. He also met with a NATO military chief in Afghanistan in April 2008. Isn't that amazing that I haven't met a NATO intelligence chief, so it's amazing terrorists get to meet them. But I guess when you're working in Iran, doing the work for the New World Order, that's quite possible. Report Bush lawyer says president could order civilians to be massacred. Well, isn't that a fine kettle of fish? I remember when this came out, you know, you had to scrape the vomit off the floor here when you had Justice Department lawyer John Yoo saying that, you know, they could just pretty much rip the Constitution up and slaughter anybody they feel like, and that's okay. Well, now he's being grilled. He's a professor at Berkeley teaching law to the new up-and-coming Reichsführers, I guess. And he says that's still okay, that technically the president can give orders in time of war as commander-in-chief to open fire on whole villages of undesirables, just like it was in Apocalypse Now. Kill them all and let God sort it out. But it's like I've said in previous shows too, there are other laws on this planet. And when society breaks down, there's only one law left, the law of the jungle. And sometimes states are very quick to make laws break down, or systems of laws to break down, to exercise that ultimate law, the law of the jungle. Because they got the might to make the right. Just like our old friend Hitler. But we had to let the air out of his tires, didn't we? Then there's another one of those creepy stories that comes along. You wonder, like, where's the mantra? Like there was a school shooting. I'm listening to 680 News, and it's all I hear about. Charlie Sheen's going for therapy again. 3 days in a row I've heard that. Tiger Woods is apologizing to his cat, and all the cats are getting together to say, "Aww." And Tiger Woods is going to apologize to the palm tree across the street that saw his head get whacked in with the golf club. Aww. But they missed the school shooting. It was because I was vomiting for that story, I turned to an American station, AM 970, PBS, National Public Radio in Buffalo, and heard some real news. It's not just that they had a school shooting, it was in Littleton, Colorado. Everybody knows about school shootings in Littleton, Colorado, and then it just floors me. How can you have a school shooting in Littleton, Colorado that doesn't get on the lib-left radio mantra to be repeated for 12 days straight every 20 seconds on the 666 Broadcasting Corporation? Floored me. So, of course, I go to the local news just to get the better option. And then I find out why. Well, it's very obvious why. One of the teachers fought back, disarmed the asshole, took the gun off him, and saved the other kids' lives. So math teacher David Benke, a door-to-door Bible salesman even, worst kind of people, those guys, overpowered this worm. He wounded 2 children. But that's great. He didn't get to kill any of them. So just an unbelievable story, but what's unbelievable even more is the fact on how they pick and choose what they're going to tell you. And if it doesn't have good propaganda purposes on the 666 network, it just doesn't get mentioned much. But like I said on previous shows too, and we have a newer and broader audience, you don't have to be a victim, especially in a building. One of the most important things you can do when faced with a scenario like that is use the school's firefighting system. If the guy's inside, maybe he knew that, and that's why he didn't go inside. Maybe he thought somebody might have heard this, but I wrote a thing a long time ago called How to Defend Your School, and the 666 networks don't want you to know that, so they've never let me tell you on a 666 show. But every building has a fire system. You got fire extinguishers. They're dry chemical. You spray one of those babies even outside, like you disappear. It's like, 10,000 of those little pepper spray containers, man. It's like putting 50 pounds of talc in the air. So you disappear. And it's hard to breathe because you're breathing in something equivalent to talcum powder. So that really makes it difficult for the killer to kill you because he can't see you anymore. Then another thing you do is you take the hoses and wet down the floor. You ever run on a wet floor? Schmuck! Especially if there's a little wax on it. Like you're going down, and you're going down hard. So you can be around the corner where he can't see you or shoot you, and you can make an invisible barrier of this dry chemical and wet down the floors. And as Mr. Nutbar comes steaming around the corner at Mach 2, and he hits that wet, waxed floor, he's going to go sliding into the wall real hard, man. And he's probably going to drop his gun, and even if he does it, he's never going to see you anymore. And you just blast him while he's lying there with those fire hoses, and you probably drown the bastard. But see, they don't want you to know that, because then they can't use the propaganda to take away your life. You're supposed to be a willing victim, because you like it, and you want to beg for it. They like it when you beg for it. Then we have a scientist disappearing here in Canada. Everybody knows about some of the things we talked about, that funny beam in Oslo, Norway. the big plasma ball in Haiti. Well, what are the odds that Lachlan